Welcome to the WTIM Morning Show. I'm Avery Cooper, your host. Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. You'll always do better with Landmark and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. Find the streams at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com's Facebook or on YouTube at WTIM TV. University of Illinois Extension horticulture educator Andrew Halsanger in studio once again. Welcome back.
Hey, good to be here.
Great to have you here. And you have a lot of great horticulture programs coming up in the next month or so, a little ways away. One of the things that you're offering includes raised bed gardening, and you're partnering with Taylorville Memorial Hospital. Sounds like you got a lot to do between now and May 17th to be ready for that raised bed gardening class, which is in person.
Yeah, it's coming along. We're getting the marketing flyers and social media out there, but wanted to highlight it on the radio here today that we'll be having this session on raised bed gardening. And the hospital has installed a few raised beds and going to be looking forward to growing some vegetables over this growing season.
And it is a free event, I understand. How can I sign up for this?
We have registration on our website, so you can go to our extension website and register there. And as you said, it's free, and look to have hopefully a full room of participants to learn about raised bed gardening.
What are some of the benefits of raised bed gardening?
Some of the benefits are you get to have more of an influence on your soil because you're filling that bed with soil. And so you usually have less weed pressure because you don't have the native weed seed bank that you're dealing with. Good drainage, and a lot of our plants like tomatoes and peppers, that expansive space, that loose soil benefits the root system, and they tend to do quite well in a raised bed scenario.
And what about just in terms of gardening? I would think that a raised bed would make it a little bit easier just to, in a practicality standpoint, would it not?
Well, it does ease the growing of bending over and having to deal with that. But the one component that maybe you may have a struggle with is watering. So the raised bed does tend to dry out more often and quicker. It also tends to heat up a little bit quicker. So making sure that you have a good watering schedule is important whenever it comes to a raised bed, because you're not going to have the reservoir that you have per se in the native soil, like in the ground. Whenever you're gardening, you have that reservoir of water. Well, this can be compensated in the raised bed by drip irrigation and having a timer to where it can do some of the watering for you. So that's also another advantage.
Yeah, and I think a good way to sum it up, or at least as far as this question goes, who is a raised bed good for to be utilizing all the time? Everyone?
Yeah, everyone can benefit from a raised bed. I haven't heard of anyone complaining about the access that you have where you can stand up and pick your vegetables and not have any problems there. Some of them are made where you can even have a seating area nearby. Some are more accessible for those that are having difficulty. Just a great way to garden, and many community gardens also utilize a raised bed scenario.
What are some of the things that you often find in raised beds? What are some of the most common plants or vegetables or fruits that you see?
There's a wide variety. I've seen strawberries as far as fruits, lettuce, kale, just about anything you can imagine. What tends not to be so much in a raised bed are your vining crops, but they have developed some bush varieties of some of those vining crops. Or you can take the vertical and put a trellis, and so some of your cucumbers may be grown in a raised bed because you have that vertical aspect where you can have easy picking and those bush varieties that are more compact.
And so you'll learn how to manage a raised bed. What about making a raised bed? How hard or easy is it to make a raised bed?
Fairly easy.
Yeah.
Can get to the complex. Depends on how much effort you want to put in. You can use just basic stonework and put if you had cinder blocks or things of that, pavers, those kind of elements, you could design a raised bed with those. Or you could get into the screws and boards of making the connections of fastening it together. Uh, some have like metal as a panel kind of insert. Livestock feeding troughs have been used as raised beds, and just a wide variety of materials you can use.
Again, you'll learn all about that and a lot more at the raised bed gardening course from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. May 17th at Taylorville Memorial Hospital. Anything else that you'd like to add about your raised bed gardening course?
Just looking forward to it, and
Yeah.
hope others are looking forward to signing up.
Mm. And more, you can go to go.illinois.edu/CJMM events. And one of the things you mentioned as a benefit for raised bed gardening is the soil. And you don't have to worry about this specifically as much if you're adding your own soil into the raised bed. But if you are still working on a traditional bed, this might be a really good time to test your soil right now, right, Andrew?
It is a good time to test the soil and see where your levels of nutrients are, as well as the pH. The pH of the soil is going to determine what nutrients are available. So for vegetable gardeners, you're looking between 6 and 7 for those widest available amount of nutrients. And so finding out what your pH, finding out how much organic matter you have in your soil. If you're low on organic matter, a good supplement to that is compost. And so using compost, you can add that into your soil and benefit the growing in the future.
Mm. And obviously, this is a great time to do it because it's the start of the growing season and whatnot. But maybe say I'm in the middle of growing season. I've already had my soil test at the beginning of the season, but I'm just kind of not quite sure how my soil health is. What are some signs that I should get my soil tested again?
Well, you may have, looking at a healthy plant and then a non healthy plant, you can make a comparison there. And there's probably some yield that's going to be lessened if you don't have adequate nutrients. So looking at just the growth of the plant and how much it grows, you'll be able to make some considerations for your soil test. But then some plants have some indicators of leaf color. So if there's nutrients that aren't there, they're going to show you that in the context of their leaves. So you may have, if you have red leaves on your strawberry, that's going to show that you have a nutrient deficiency.
Interesting. And I suppose too, one way to tell is if you have a bed in one area that's separate from another bed, and one's doing really well and one isn't. That might be a signal to test that bed and see how you can do that. Speaking of how you can do that, how can you test the soil?
So there's soil test labs that are available around our region, and you can either drop a sample off at one of those laboratories, and they'll test your soil, or they even have to where you can mail in a soil sample and then have that tested, and then they'll get you the results fairly readily. So it's a great time to do that and get that soil tested.
All right. I want to talk more about horticulture with horticulture educator Andrew Halsinger from the University of Illinois Extension after this short time out. Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. You'll always do better with Landmark, and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. You'll find the streams on the TaylorvilleDailyNews.com Facebook or on YouTube at WTIM TV.
WTIM. Your information station, WTIM.
It's the WTIM Morning Show. I'm Avery Cooper. Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. Always do better with Landmark. People's Bank and Trust. They put people first. Well, coming up in May, early May, the University of Illinois Extension Master Gardeners are holding their plant sale. And yes, it's a plant sale. Yes, you have an opportunity to buy some great plants at a good price and learn all about those plants from some experts. But there's also, according to horticulture educator Andrew Halsinger, a possibility there will be some non-plant related items at the plant sale. Tell me a little bit more, Andrew.
So I've heard they're having a drawing for a bird feeder, and there's also some artwork that's been donated by a master gardener that's garden related. And so when you come to the plant sale, you may find that there's more than just plants to be purchased. That in times past, they've had some master gardeners that had some gardening books that they wanted to get rid of. And so there can be more than just plants, but they should have quite a good selection of plants to choose from. And they dig some of these plants out of their landscapes, and it's a great time for dividing plants and potting those up and spreading some horticulture joy to others. And so they'll be having their plant sale on May 6th, going to start at 9 a.m. until they sell out of plants.
All right. And you mentioned there's going to be quite a few different types of plants there. What can you expect from the plant sale when you go to visit and buy a plant?
Well, they do a good job of labeling the plants, and so you'll get the name of the plant, but they also try to provide you some of the culture and care and shade plants compared to sun. So you'll be able to find the like kinds of plants oriented to what you're shopping for, and should be able to make some good plant selections for your growing environment where you're going to be placing the plant. And that's important to put the right plant in the right place whenever you're gardening.
And where you mentioned 9 a.m., where again? At the extension office?
At the extension office here in Taylorville.
All right. And so they will also be able to provide you a good reference on that plant down the road with their help desk, which I believe is Thursdays and starts sometime in May. You'll have to check the University of Illinois Extension page to find out more about the help desk. I just don't have it in front of me right now. Maybe I'll pull it up in a moment. Let's talk trees here for a moment, Andrew. Arbor Day is coming up Friday, April 28th. And, you've been doing a lot of driving around, and you've noticed some things about some trees in the area in Christian County. What would you like to let people know about?
Well, I do pay attention to some of the details, and I wonder if others do as well. Of you drive by and you see trees that they may have stub cut kind of limbs where they didn't make wise pruning decisions in the past, and just thinking about what is up in the canopy of the tree as far as maybe a risk factor. So I know that we've had some storms here recently that have caused some damage to trees. So investigating, see if there's some maybe broken limbs in those trees from prior storms that may need to be taken out, properly pruned. So you may have to find a tree care professional to do some of the pruning. You want to be safe whenever you're looking at pruning and making wise decisions for the future of the tree and your landscape.
Right. That's always important. When you are planting a new tree, you got to think about the future. What are some things to avoid?
Well, the things to avoid are planting a tree that is in the wrong place. So if you have a large tree and you're planting it under a power line, not a wise decision, because it's going to grow higher than the power line and encroach in that, and too close to homes. So if you have a tree that the spread is going to get too large, going to be in putting branches, it's nice to have a tree that has branches over the home to the effective shade, maybe helping on that utility bill. But you also got to think about just the overall size of the canopy of the tree and how large and close it's going to be to the home.
And I mean, goodness, have you seen some of the sidewalks too, where there's a tree nearby? Yeah, that'll give you an example of what will happen to your home if you plant it too close, just to kind of give you an idea.
It is a consideration to think about the root systems of trees as well. And There's some trees that have shallow root systems like maples. And so you get a constant source of phone calls of people wanting to know, well, I'm having to mow over these roots and they're coming out of the ground. And it's just because the species is conducive to those shallow roots. And so thinking about other things besides maples that we can plant may be a benefit to our communities.
Well, what are some of those plants besides, say, maples that would be a benefit?
Well, we have a nice brochure that we have available at the extension office, and it gives tree species and selection for small trees, medium trees, evergreens, large trees. And so I look at like the larger trees, and we have trees like the bald cypress or the bur oak, ginkgo trees, sugar hackberry, swamp white oak. So there's a number of native trees and non-native trees that can work well in the landscape. And this brochure, Under the Canopy, is in its 3rd edition. And so it does give a nice highlight of some of the trees that you can plant in your yard. And if you're looking for smaller trees, the pawpaw, the black haw viburnum, serviceberry, Cornelian cherry dogwood are some that are listed and would be good possibilities. It's nice to see some of those flowering trees that are smaller in the landscape, and you're probably noticing some of the red buds and the dogwoods blooming now. So maybe take a look around the neighborhood, see what's blooming in your area, and maybe help with your shopping decisions. If you look at the mature tree, you'll know how big it gets and make some wise decisions in the future.
All right, we got about 20 seconds, Andrew. Is there anything else that you'd like to include?
Just look for the upcoming programs. Most of my programming is available by Zoom as well as in person, but the raised bed gardening at the Taylorville Memorial Hospital is just going to be in person, so be sure and sign up.
Go.illinois.edu/CJMM events. That's May 17th from 4:30 to 5:30 for the raised bed gardening course at Taylorville Memorial Hospital. Horticulture educator Andrew Hulsinger, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.